When I was a kid, my parents were really into camping. It was a common thing for us: tents, campfires, and the soothing sounds of nature. But one time, they decided to venture out of our city to explore a new camping site. Little did we know, this trip would etch an unsettling memory into my childhood. The drive to the out-of-town camping site was long, and as a child, I split my time between helping my parents set up camp and playing around in the vast wilderness that surrounded us. The sun hung low in the sky as the day faded, casting long shadows among the trees. As dusk settled in, I felt the familiar urge to pee. Wandering away from the campsite, I stumbled upon something unusual: a pair of very small shoes. Curiosity piqued, I followed the trail of tiny garments, gloves, socks, and what seemed like fragments of a child's clothing. The path led me further into the woods until I reached a small cabin. It was odd. I hadn't seen any other campers around. Intrigued, I approached the cabin and peered through a crack in the window. What met my eyes was something straight out of a nightmare. Inside the dimly lit cabin sat a larger man, at least 6 feet tall, with long black hair and torn clothes. He sat with his back against the window, legs crossed, seemingly oblivious to the world outside. My gaze was drawn to a gruesome sight. He was carefully cutting parts of a baby doll with a knife. Frozen with horror, I couldn't look away. The scene unfolded before my eyes, and I felt my knees get weak with fear. I wanted to get a better look, so I stepped closer, accidentally snapping a twig beneath my foot. In an instant, the man turned around, his eyes locking onto mine through the narrow gap, his face twisted into an absolutely terrifying grin. Panic surged through me as he stood up, his eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't move. The man started making his way to the cabin's exit, and I knew I had to get out of there. With the image of that sinister grin burned into my mind, I let out the loudest possible scream I could, while sprinting back along the trail of small clothing pieces. The man's footsteps echoed behind me, growing closer with each panic step. Tears blurred my vision as I desperately looked for my family. And then, like a guardian angel, my father came running towards me. I ran into his arms, sobbing and scared like never before. Always prepared, my father carried a firearm for safety during our camping trips. Without hesitation, he fired a warning shot in the direction of the man. The gunshot echoed through the woods, and the man, still grinning, stopped in his tracks. The chilling moment hung in the air before he turned and disappeared into the darkness. My father held me tightly, shielding me from the nightmare that had unfolded in those woods. That night, we packed up our camp in a hurry, leaving the unsettling sight behind. The camping trips that once held a sense of adventure now carried an everlasting unease. Even to this day, I have trouble sleeping thinking about that day and what could have happened. The weekend beckoned us away from the city's boredom, leading me and my friends, let's call them Joseph, Liam, and Sean, to take off on a camping trip. The anticipation bubbled as we drove through rolling hills and winding roads, leaving the urban chaos behind. Our destination, a serene camping site, promised relaxing under the open sky. After a 40-minute drive, we parked the car near the trailhead. The air outside was chilly, infused with the scent of earth and pine. Our backpacks laden with tents and supplies, we began the short walk toward the camping site. The forest enveloped us, its peace a distinct contrast to the city's constant hum. As we navigated the narrow trail, the sun dappled through the leaves, casting playful patterns on the ground. About halfway to the camping site, we encountered a man who seemed out of place in the serene woods. Late 30s or early 40s, wearing a worn red and black rain jacket, his unkempt beard and disheveled appearance hinted at a life detached from civilization. A faint scar under his left eye added to the intrigue. The man approached us with a nod, and a small talk about camping developed. Something about his demeanor set off an unsettling feeling, like a subtle discord in the otherwise calm symphony of nature. Despite the odd sensation, we exchanged pleasantries and continued toward the campsite, dismissing the uneasy encounter as a quirk of the wilderness. Upon reaching the designated area, the camping site looked nothing like the online images we had eagerly anticipated. The clearing, once perhaps a vibrant haven for outdoor enthusiasts, now bore signs of abandonment. The picnic tables were weathered, and the fire pit held only traces of past flames. Sean, ever the extrovert, spotted a tent about 100 yards away. A bright lime and black color stood out against the muted backdrop of the forest. Intrigued, he decided to approach, hoping to strike up a conversation with fellow campers. As he neared the tent, it became evident that it was empty. The only contents were a sleeping bag and a pair of binoculars, an odd sight that sparked curiosity but failed to raise alarm. Undeterred, we returned to our own tents, eager to make the best of the situation. The evening unfolded with casual games, laughter, and shared stories. The unsettling encounter with the mysterious man and the strange empty tent faded into the background as the camaraderie of friendship took center stage. As the night draped the forest in darkness, we decided to light a fire. The crackling flames created a comforting glow, casting shadows that danced across the trees. We chatted, we ate, and immersed ourselves in the simple pleasures of the camping experience. Suddenly, a noise shattered the peaceful atmosphere, the distinct crunch of someone stepping on branches. Liam, quick to react, pointed his flashlight toward the source, expecting to find another camper. To our surprise, there was nothing there. The beam of light revealed only the quiet, unmoving forest. A hushed silence settled over the campsite as we exchanged confused glances. Dismissing the noise as a nocturnal creature or our imagination, we resumed our activities. The unsettling feeling lingered, but the warmth of the fire and the camaraderie of friends served as a reassuring buffer. As the night wore on, we decided to go into our tents. In the cozy confines of our sleeping bags, we continued chatting, playing cards, and relishing the simplicity of the moment. But eventually we decided it was time to go to sleep. However, an unspoken tension hung in the air, a residue of the strange occurrences that had punctuated the evening. In the stillness of the night, Joseph's scream pierced the air. I jolted awake, disoriented, to find a man zipping up the entrance of our tent. The small space barely contained the panic that surged within me. Reacting on instinct, I kicked out with all the force I could muster. My foot connected with the intruder's lower stomach, causing him to stumble backward. In the dim moonlight, I caught a glimpse of his red and black rain jacket before he turned and vanished into the darkness. No one could sleep after that terrifying encounter. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, seemed amplified and possibly with a potential threat. We huddled in our tents, whispering nervously, casting wary glances at the dark forest beyond. The first light of dawn brought a reluctant sense of relief. The forest, bathed in the gentle hues of morning, appeared less menacing. However, the terrifying encounter of the night lingered, etched into the fabric of our collective memory. Without a word, we hastily packed our belongings and made our way back to the car. The morning sun, though soothing, failed to get rid of the lasting unease. Determined to seek answers, we drove to the nearest police station to report the unsettling incident. As we described the man who had approached us on our way to the camping site, the police officers exchanged concerned glances. After a brief absence, they returned with news that sent a shiver down my spine. The man we described matched the description of a fugitive wanted for assault and battery, a dangerous individual who had eluded capture for far too long. The forest, which had initially seemed like an escape, had accidentally sheltered us from a more menacing reality. Being a nature enthusiast, camping alone was a routine adventure for me. This time, I found myself heading to my usual spot, a peaceful area close to a babbling water stream. The rhythmic sound of flowing water was my lullaby under the stars. Arriving a tad later than expected, I hurriedly set up camp just before dusk. The familiar routine of pitching a tent and lighting a fire was second nature. The comforting crackle of the fire and the gentle rush of the stream promised a night of privacy and peace. As darkness settled, I immersed myself in a book, the ambient sounds of the forest embracing me. That's when it happened, a scream. Distant and echoing, yet piercingly clear. The hairs on my neck stood on end. The scream, though faint, was horrifying, the kind that sent shivers down your spine. For a moment, I hesitated. It could have been a mountain lion. Those creatures sometimes roam the wild, but something felt off. This area was not known for mountain lions. The scream was human, raw, and laced with fear. Ignorance, however, often wins against better judgment. I convinced myself that it was none of my business, too far away to concern me. I resumed my book, trying to drown out the unsettling echo in my mind. As the night progressed, I retreated into my tent, hoping to find relief in sleeping. Just as the soothing embrace of falling asleep beckoned, the scream returned. This time, it was closer, more visceral. Fear gripped me as I lay frozen in the dark, straining to hear any movement beyond the canvas walls. Suddenly, the chilling scream resonated again, now just a stone's throw away. Panic set in. Logic gave way to instinct. Grabbing only my valuables, I abandoned my tent and belongings, leaving everything behind. I promised myself I'd return in the light of day to retrieve the rest. The night air felt heavy as I fled to my car. The distant scream persisted, almost taunting me to investigate, but fear held me captive. As I unlocked my car and sped away, the scream echoed once more, now hauntingly close. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw something that turned my unease into terror. 2 men and a woman emerged from the shadows at the side of the road, their eyes fixated on my fleeing car. Their presence, unexpected and horrifying, made me feel a sense of horror like no other. I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that I narrowly escaped something terrifying. What if I had stayed at the campsite, investigated the screams, thinking someone was in danger? The realization hit me like a freight train. It could have been a setup, a trap waiting for a curious soul to wander into the unknown. As I drove away, the forest seemed to exhale a collective sigh of relief. The unsettling encounter lingered, leaving me haunted by the what-ifs and the chilling scream that echoed through the night. The haven of nature, once a source of privacy, gave me a memory that would forever taint the peace of my camping adventures.